No. Because it's the proclamations. You know? The kids, I think Milo's coming.
Take the time. I don't think I wanted to do, but
you to do before you left. I think anybody who's a CFO should do that.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
yeah, you're right.
We'll ask if you would join us in a salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2018 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2017, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams? Here. Mr. Daffis?
Here.
Mr. Limbrick?
Here. Good night, CC.
Mr. McGehee?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct this business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Limbrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 3rd meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. We've never had this many people for proclamations, so it's wonderful.
It's great.
So we are going to start out with two proclamations. The first, Mr. Daffis is going to do the proclamation in solidarity with Soma Youth March for Our Lives activists. And we also have our Assemblywoman, Myla Jacey, here. She'll come up at the same time when Mr. Daffis goes down there. And the second proclamation is for ultimate peace. And at that point, I'll ask about 500 of you just to come up here and stand with me as I read that. We have, after those proclamations, we have an appointment to the Recreation Advisory Committee, which we'll do. Then we'll have our Board of Health meeting, and then we'll have our public comment. This will be an opportunity for, for anyone to get up and comment about an item that's on the agenda. If you're here to comment on an ordinance on final passage, we would ask you to come up at that time. But if you're here just to talk about any item that's on the agenda or about the police chief, you would come up in item number 9, and I'll prompt you. I'll ask you to come up at that time. We have an ordinance on final passage which deals with solar energy systems in Maplewood in all of our housing zones. We have an ordinance establishing the government energy aggregation program, followed by a resolution forming a cooperative purchasing agreement. We have an ordinance to establish the cap bank for our budgeting. And those are all ordinances on final passage, which require a public hearing, and then we'll do a final vote. We have a new ordinance on the Maplewood Community Board on race. If you're here to speak about that, that would also be in the first public comment section. Again, I will prompt you. And we have a new ordinance on our bond. We're borrowing money to go out and make some capital improvements. Then we will actually, the Township Committee will select the police chief, we'll discuss and select. Then we go into our discussion items. The first one will be Memorial Park Conservancy proposal for memorial trees in the park. The second will be a report of the Township Sustainability Committee. Third is asking the Township to take a position in opposition to the inclusion of the citizenship question on the 2020 census. We'll be talking about a gun redemption program, the establishment of a youth advisory committee, and a recommendation for our upcoming bond and note sale to use Phoenix Advisors. Next up, we will be accepting the Maplewood Village Special Improvement District budget for 2018, and then we'll be accepting the Springfield Avenue Special Improvement District budget for Springfield Avenue Partnership Special Improvement District for 2018. Our consent agenda, which will be closing some projects. The library will be approving bills and claims, awarding a contract for replacement windows for 10 Inwood Place, approving minutes from March 20th. We'll now have our second public comment period, administrative reports, and reports of elected officials. So if you're inclined to stay all night, that's what's going to be happening. You're more than willing to, welcome to stay. But my guess is that some of you will leave after your item of business is over, and that's okay too. So the first item will be the proclamation. I'm going to ask Township Committeeman Daffis if he would go down and read that proclamation, invite up your guests.
Come on up. But you guys gather around here. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see our youth here this evening. As you all know, we're living in challenging times. Turning on the news or checking out your social media feed could cause severe anxiety or depression at any time. But once in a while, in times like this, a transformative thing happens, which awakens, which inspires, which lifts us up, which gives us hope, which makes us feel so much better about the future. Sort of like a transfusion of new blood, if you will. That great transformative event has been the March for Our Lives movement. A movement organized and led by youth around the country, including by our very own youth here in South Orange and Maplewood. I don't know if you all marched with all of us a couple Saturdays ago in Newark or wherever you marched. It was a quite indeed transformative and inspirational experience to see these great kids lead us into the future. These kids took their pain and their anger and they transformed it into action. They have the courage, conviction, and leadership way beyond their years. And they are changing the national conversation on gun safety in our country. They will effectuate change in ways we were not able to do for them and for us. There's no turning back. The real promise of reducing gun violence in our country is here, and it's because of these great kids. So we, the governing body, wanted to do our small part in saluting you, thanking you, empowering you, and encouraging you to continue on with this great promise. For all of us, for those who were lost, and for those who are yet to be born. This is a proclamation in support of your efforts thus far and what you will continue to do for us. We're so very proud of all of you. I'd like to recognize Shannon Cuddle, who's here with us as well. Shannon worked with our youth and led them in the march in Newark. Shannon, as some of you know, is a nationally recognized expert in youth organizing in matters related to schools that are more welcoming and affirming, creating better climates in schools. She was the person who created the very first anti-bullying policy that has been adopted around the country, and she is an expert in code of conduct and better practices in our schools. Thank you, Shannon. I also recognize we're honored to have with us here our very own Assemblywoman Myla Jason. Myla, would you please join us? And so for the proclamation, whereas hundreds of our local youth heeded the national call to action against gun violence in support of gun safety laws and in honor of the young victims of the Parkland High School massacre on February 14th of this year, by organizing and joining the Sister March for Our Lives March on March 24th in Newark. And whereas hundreds of our local youth courageously and gracefully participated in the preceding national student walkouts. And whereas Soma Action Student Leadership Committee co-leaders, Lily Foreman of South Orange, Columbia High School, Zoe Newman of South Orange, Columbia High School, Layla Gold of Maplewood Middle School, Olivia Hirsch of South Orange, Columbia High School. Very proud dad, Larry Hirsch, is here with us. Great role model, right? Following your footsteps, Larry. Whereas the Soma Student Leadership Committee has 31 members that represent Columbia High School, MMS, and SOMS. And whereas student organizers from Maplewood and South Orange have come together with community leaders and Soma Action in Maplewood and South Orange to rally in support of gun violence prevention. And whereas, in their own words, we, They stand with and support victims of gun violence and mass shootings. We hope by speaking out and standing up, we will empower all students to use their voice as powerful agents of change and finally move from inaction to action on sensible gun control. As we march now, we fight for our lives, for our communities, our schools, until we end all forms of gun violence. Now, therefore, I, Dean Daffis, Committeeman of Maplewood Township Committee, on behalf of the Township Committee and on behalf of our mayor, Mayor Victor DeLuca, with great pride, we salute our youth and stand in solidarity with their efforts to end gun violence in our country. May they accomplish what we have not been able to do for them. As our emerging leaders, our future is very bright indeed. Thank you.
Good evening. There's very little that I could add to Dean's words, but there are a couple of things that I do want to say. I want to also recognize Jonah Wolf, who was an intern in my office, who is a great organizer and activist, and a graduate of Columbia High School. As a former Board of Ed member and now a state legislator, I cannot tell you how encouraged, how excited, and how proud I am of our young people. Many times we hear negative things about our youth. The past couple of months, I think we've turned a corner in this country. I am encouraged, I'm energized, and I am excited by their energy. I really do feel this is a different time. I know that they are not going to let this go. I'm not going to let this go. Here in New Jersey, we have some very, very strong laws. In fact, last week we passed another 6 to tighten up our laws even more. But it's not happening everywhere, and we live in fear of hearing about another mass shooting. I was at Columbia High School on the day of the walkout. I stood by on the sidelines and I watched proudly as they came out. They were quiet, they were respectful, they were organized, and they managed it all in 19 minutes. They were trying for 17, but when you have that many students moving around, it takes a little longer. I want to thank the administration for their support and for the way in which they helped. The students kept the news people away, and the police were wonderful as well. I didn't make it to the Maplewood train station, but I went to the South Orange train station for the rally to see students off on the train to Newark or to Morristown or to New York, depending on where they were going. And that evening, Saturday evening, I went to Montclair, where my 4 grandchildren attended a rally. So as a grandparent, as a parent, as a citizen, as a legislator, I am totally committed to continuing this effort to remove the scourge of guns from our society. I don't want any child or any parent to fear sending their children to school, to a mall, to a movie theater, to a place of worship. We are better than that, and we can do better, and I know that these young people have the support of everyone in this room, in this community, and we have to make sure throughout this country. I want to thank you for that and salute the students once more.
Hi. Hi, I'm Zoe. We just wanted to let everyone know there's papers on the benches outside that give more detail. But we're having a town hall on Saturday at 5 p.m. at Essex Community College. And we've contacted, oh yes, that's our banner. It's really great. We got a bunch of people to sign during lunch today at Maplewood and Columbia, and yeah.
You can see the signatures, but they're here.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot. Anyways, so we have the town hall, and we really want as many students and adults to come and talk to the elected officials that we've invited, and ask questions. And yeah, I mean that's about it. Yeah, thank you.
We just wanted to say once again thank you to Maplewood and South Orange and all the elected officials who have helped us in this journey to fight in the March for Our Lives. And we would like to present this banner that we took with us to the March for Our Lives in Newark that we marched behind. It is signed by so many students to Maplewood for all their help and dedication to the cause. So thank you.
Thank you to Mayor DeLuca and the council.
Okay. Here we go. Next up, we have the ultimate peace proclamation. I'm going to ask all of you to come on up here. Famous last words. So if you look up at that, you're going to be on TV. And you're going to be seen by millions and millions and millions of people. More millions than have ever watched TV before. Or thereabouts. No, there's probably about 3 people watching us right now, but you can wave to them all. But this is a proclamation for ultimate peace. And then we're going to have a couple of you come up and describe what you're doing, okay? So you can dread as to who's that person's going to be or those couple of people. But the proclamation reads, whereas Maplewood stands in full support of building cross-cultural understanding and engaged citizenry, and whereas we acknowledge that building resilient communities free of discrimination, fear, and hate depends on the energy, spirit, and voices of young people to lead us into the future toward a more equitable and just world. And whereas Ultimate Peace is a nonprofit organization whose socio-educational program is based on building friendship, trust, and leadership skills among young people who live in communities divided by conflict, using the values-based sport of Ultimate Frisbee, which was founded here in Maplewood. Yay! And whereas this young group of Arab and Jewish, Israelis, and Palestinians from the West Bank are specifically visiting Maplewood, the birthplace of Ultimate Frisbee, on the anniversary of its invention by Columbia High School students in 1968. And whereas we are proud of the tradition, evolution, and international recognition of our homegrown sport, the values it stands for, and the young people who carry its tradition forward, both in Maplewood and across the world. Now, therefore, I, Victor DeLuca, Mayor of the Township of Maplewood, welcome Ultimate Peace to our community and support its efforts to use Ultimate as an instrument for building peace, cooperation, understanding, and leadership skills. Congratulations and thank you.
Hello, my name is Scott Graber. I'm actually from North Jersey. I'm from Tenafly. I have roots down here, though. My family went to Columbia High School. My cousins and are from South Orange, so I was helping to bring us here. You have the same high school. You can't have a rivalry. Yeah, we mostly, I don't want to talk too long because you guys have a long meeting. I want to say a small amount about us and say thanks. I think most of our mission was already said. We're really excited to be here. We have a group of kids from all around Israel and the West Bank who are coming together, and this group meets about monthly to work together to get to know each other, to bring the values back to their hometowns through their practices. This is their second year and a very major project for them, as all of them speak English as a second, third, or fourth language. And yeah, we're very, very thankful to Maplewood and to Columbia High School, where we were this morning, for a great welcome here. If anyone is more interested in us, we'll be doing a small presentation and panel Saturday night in South Orange. The best way to learn more about that is probably to contact us through our website or Facebook page, which is www.ultimatepeace.org or Ultimate Peace on Facebook. And we want to say a big thanks especially to our host families who are still sitting over there. It seems I don't need to say that the Frisbee community in Maplewood, South Orange is legendary, and this has been a really big example of that for us. We have all of these guys are staying with families, and the families have gone above and beyond to make them welcome in a foreign country and comfortable and excited, and they're very happy about it. So thank you to CHS, to the people of Maplewood, and everyone for having us.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Hold that. Where's our, oh, here. Thank you. I'm just going to give a second for folks to who want to leave. They can get up and leave with no hard feelings whatsoever. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're now up to an appointment on for the Recreation Advisory Committee. Mr. Lembrick?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We were very fortunate recently to receive a letter of interest from Mr. Brian Tavares, who is a relatively new resident to Maplewood in the last few years. And Mr. Tavares, in addition to being a Maplewood resident, he can tell us a little bit more about his background, but is also, he works in youth recreation, works as a coach, and is interested in volunteering with our Recreation Advisory Committee. I think he brings a lot of very valuable experience to the table and will be a great addition to that group as we continue to find ways to best serve our residents through recreation and particularly our youth. So I'd like to bring up Mr. Tavares to introduce himself to the committee and tell a little bit about his background and his interest in joining the Recreation Advisory Committee before I move his appointment.
Mayor DeLuca, members of the committee, thank you for the invitation to be here this evening. I have, as Mr. Lemrick pointed out, I'm a relatively new resident of Maplewood, and I've been looking for ways to become more involved in the community and have a positive impact in the place that I'm planning on putting down roots and where I plan on raising my children. With my experience as a youth athletics coach, I am a baseball coach at Oratory Prep, in addition to coaching at a private baseball academy in Mount Olive called In the Zone. Prior to that, and prior to moving to Maplewood, I was the under-15 national coach for Great Britain baseball and was very involved in Great Britain baseball and bringing an American pastime to the UK and growing that sport in terms of youth participation and growing the sport generally across the adult ranks. And so looking for a way to have a positive impact on the community, I put my name forward to be appointed to the Recreation Advisory Committee, and I appreciate your consideration of my nomination, and if appointed, hope to work with the committee in a positive fashion to have a positive impact on our parks, our culture, and generally the recreational activities that the residents of Maplewood expect to participate in. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yes, I would like to move that Mr. Brian Tavares be appointed as a member of the Recreation Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Congratulations. Thank you. We're going to move into our Board of Health meeting.
Okay. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws, 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2018 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2017, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams? Yes. Here, sorry. Mr. Daffis?
Here.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yeah, here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Mr. McGehee?
Here.
It's catchy.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. Whereas Section 7 provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision of this act, same time it conducts its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes. Now entertain a motion to approve the March minutes.
I'd like to move that we approve the March minutes.
I get a second?
A second.
Perfect, great.
We have to vote.
Now we'll vote.
Mr. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Rowe?
Just a couple of items. We've been working with the Kathy Rowe with the senior program, and so we've got this United Way caregivers pathways for caregivers, so that we can give information to people who are caring for an elderly parent. So we received these, and we'll be using them to advise and give information to people, because it seems like almost day we get requests for information. But now we got an up-to-date booklet on all services in our area. So that's going to be a big plus in helping us do our job. In my narrative report, I wrote about how our public health nurses were very sharp and noticed a family that may have hepatitis B, because they're from Haiti, and it had apparently been passed down from generations, which unknowing, and it happens in poverty-stricken countries. But our nurses picked up on it, and fortunately we have a Creole-speaking nurse now, and it shows the value of diversity in your workforce, that she was able to really speak to the mother, we had been the one tested, and get all the details, and we're able to direct them to the right places to get other family members tested and vaccinated. And she was unaware of a lot of this stuff because she's fairly new to America. So I just want to congratulate our sharp-eyed nurses, and it's that's like hitting a home run in public health as far as we're concerned. Also in your report, I put a long sheet with almost 20 years full of some statistics. And one of the things that we've noticed on there is the last 3 years, Lyme disease has really bumped up. I don't know why. We'll try to find out and learn more about it, but it is a little alarming that it's like kind of doubled in the last couple of years, whether it's more people being exposed or people being tested or better testing. I really don't know right now. But that's a project we're going to work on, and I hope to be able to report back to you on that. Finally, I just want to mention again with the Municipal Alliance that the police have continued to have the open gym programs, and I think just this evening they had a mentoring kind of dinner with the middle school kids, and then they went to see the book signing and reading, and I just really want to congratulate the police for, taking the initiative on some of those programs, and also YouthNet. I think Diane Malloy is here, so she helps organize a lot of this too. So I just wanted to commend them for that work.
It was a book reading at Words at 5 o'clock, which the mentors went to.
Did you go?
I couldn't go. I was at work.
Okay. I would have liked to have heard it. So that's my report.
Any update on Kings and the deliveries and noise?
We got one more complaint from the same gentleman, but he was actually kind of complaining about what we had agreed to do. He was complaining of noise at 6 o'clock. Some of the trucks had come earlier, but they weren't, if I read the memo right, his email right, they were really waiting for 6 o'clock to unload, which is what we had agreed to.
Yeah,
So,
I think the problem though is they're letting their trucks run idling. Yes, we have to get back in touch with Kings. They're either going to have to accept responsibility for that chain of delivery from when those trucks appear to when they leave, or else we're just going to have to have some restrictions about trucks being there until a certain hour.
well, prolonged idling is a code violation.
Right.
So,
But our police, in that particular time in the morning, our police are very busy.
we also have Essex Regional Health Inspectors.
Not at 6 in the morning.
We could arrange it.
Yeah, okay, you do that.
So, okay, yeah, that's a good point. I'll try to get him out there.
Follow up and then report back next month. Be great to hear.
Yes.
Anyone else like to address Mr. Rowe? Okay. I'd like to now offer the public the opportunity to address the health board? Okay. Seeing no one, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second?
Mr. Adams? Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
So we only adjourn the Board of Health. We'll be here for another couple of hours, so. So next up is the public comment session. And this is where if you'd like to comment on an item that we have on the agenda, if you're here to speak about any of the ordinances, we'll ask you to come up at that time. But if you, ordinance on final passage, anything on ordinance on first passage, you can come up at this time. So this would be if you want to speak about the community board on police, if you want to speak about the police chief appointment, anything else. We ask you to just give your name and your address, and you can start.
Hi, I'm Kelly Quirk. I live at 152 Parker Avenue in Maplewood, and I just want to simply say I support ordinance number 2901-18, the ordinance to create the Maplewood Community Board on Police.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. John Sullivan, 11 Field Road, Maplewood. I would just call to your attention the very important decision you're going to be making this evening. We have two fine candidates for the position of police chief. I believe either one of them would do a fantastic job. However, I would note that Chief Duvall is a member of the community. He lives with us. I went to two of his presentations. His views on community policing and the juvenile justice initiative, I think, are important, and I would recommend him for police chief. Also, I'm also in support of the Maplewood Community Board on Police, and I'd be more than happy to volunteer to be on that board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Reverend Brenda Ehlers. I serve here in Maplewood at Morrow Church, and I'm here to speak about an initiative that Acting Chief Duvall reached out to me on behalf of the SOMA Interfaith Clergy Association to create a youth restorative justice panel program made up of community members so that youth who were arrested but were able to be handled locally by our local police through the Station House Adjustment Program, instead of just dealing with the police, would hear from community members as well as themselves and victims. We put together that program over the last many months with a lot of work investigating programs all over the country, interviewing people all over the country, and put together a program of local community members who were trained long hours so that they could be prepared to begin this program, which will launch April 25th with our first hearings. And I just commend the work that was done to include the community and to bring restorative justice practices to this community where they are sadly needed in many areas. And two of our panel members, Christine and Lillian, are both here, having been trained, put in long hours, and are here to just say a word. Hi, thank you. My name is Christina Tabor-Kellenay, and I live at 24 Park Road. I came here with Reverend Brenda because I feel so passionately about this program that we've been trained in. As a citizen, as a mother, and as a lawyer, I feel the need desperately in our community for restorative justice practices, which will address structural inequality and racism in our town. And so I'm so proud to support Acting Chief Duvall in this, and I hope that the township will appoint him to be the chief of police, because I see someone in practice who's actually putting into place programs that we need. I'm excited for the program to begin. I've had mediation training in it along with the other team members, and I would be dismayed to see that program go away before it even gets started. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lillian Nash, 89 Orchard Road in Maplewood. just want to echo those words. I have 2 children in the school system, Maplewood Middle and one in Columbia High School, and I've been active throughout the community and the Girl Scouts and various things. And, you know, and I was very excited about this program, and I'm truly in support of it. And I think it will make an excellent in addition to the communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Kasha Pikars. I'm a Maplewood resident, and I'm here both on behalf of Soma Justice, but also as a resident in my own capacity. So first, as a rep of Soma Justice, of course, I support ordinance number 2901-18 to create the Maplewood Community Board on Police. I think we can all agree that this is a critical component in the fight against racial injustice and systematic racism that pervades not just our town, but as we know and we see every day, our entire country. By taking this big step, we are now in a special and pretty small group of municipalities who have sort of decided to take things into their own hands and try to have a real impact on how policing is done in their community. And I look forward to working with the committee and helping make it influential, and I hope that as a group we will all make the most of it. Which gets me to what I want to say here as a resident and not in my capacity as a member of Soma Justice. As a resident, to be honest, I'm a little nervous about tonight's vote for the police chief. The Attorney General guidelines give us, as we know, very little real leverage in being able to do anything with our police force. The only way that this board and anything else that we want to do can really work is if, and including key initiatives with the restorative justice movement, the only way that that's successful is if we have an open, humble police chief, someone who's willing to face his own potentially internalized racism, somebody who's willing to work with his officers as they face their own racism and is willing to commit to doing that, as difficult and as challenging as that is, because that's really where the hard work starts in order for us to make true social change. Without having somebody who is truly willing to work by our side, we can't do anything. Our hands are tied. All we have are carrots. We don't have any sticks. And so I hope that the Township Committee thinks about that as you think about who your choices are. We all know that leaders, when they become leaders, they, things happen. People can, they can make great change. They can make terrible change. We don't know, what either of these chiefs will truly be like when they enter their leadership position. But given you've interviewed them multiple times, you've gotten to know them, I hope that you'll think about that you'll trust your best judgment in who will really help us make the kind of change that we have the potential to make here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ronnie Bamforth. I live at 137 Maplewood Avenue, and I just want to say I strongly support the ordinance establishing the community board.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Erin Scherzer. I live at 49 Oberlin Street. I'm speaking today as both a resident, a mother, and a trustee of the Community Coalition on Race. I'm speaking today to support the Community Board on Police. I want to thank both the Township, particularly Mr. Desiderio, and also the Maplewood Police Department for working with the community to create this board. It's a step in the right direction. We all know that there's so much more that we would like this board to be able to do, but we know the limits of the state that we live in. That being said, the collaboration and working together on this, we hope, is the spirit that our community can move forward in terms of law enforcement. So thank you, and I support the measure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Gus Senningberg, 27 Burnett Avenue, Maplewood, New Jersey, 07040. All right, a couple things. First, just a quick response to your comment real quick. I've known Jimmy and Kevin since before they were walking, both of them. Both are stand-up cats, and I stand up for both of them. They're both buddies of mine. I got nothing but respect and love for both of those cats. In terms of who they are as men, I'd stand by them. I've stood by them their entire lives. I'd stand by both of them again. We've been in some stuff growing up together for sure, and they've looked after me, and I've looked after them. So that said, best man wins, hallelujah, and they'll both do a good job. Next, if you all would humor me, I'd like to correct. I watched the meeting last week, and I wanted to correct a couple things regarding a regulation basketball court. So there's a history here, and there's some wonderful things that have gone on this evening. We've had, inclusion from all over the world. We're talking about, community mentoring programs. We're talking about all of these things, right? There were a couple of statements that were made about there not being regulation basketball courts in other communities around Maplewood. So I wanted to share that Verona has two. Bloomfield, park behind IHOP on Bloomfield Avenue, they have one. Branchbrook Park, Weequahic Park, Orange Park, Elmwood Park, Audubon Park. Oh, Rucker, by the way, regulation. I played there. West 4th Street, regulation. I played there. I played there. I played for the New Jersey Roadrunners first year. I played for them. I played for Floyd Lane and Nate Archibald. Regulation courts.
Go out there and measure it.
Across from the Brooklyn Masonic Temple, regulation courts, 4 of them. But the one that you were adamant about was the Baird Community Center. Now, there are 3 courts at the Baird Community Center, sir. You've got the north-south that are not regulation, east-west is. And Ms. Adams has the drawings that she can share with you. Now, in this community, there are constituents, all of us. So let's talk about those that are serviced. We have a diving tank, an Olympic pool, fencing's taken care of, golf's taken care of. You can play paddle at night when it's cold. You got tennis courts everywhere. We got a skating rink, roller rink. They play, lacrosse is taken care of. Football, Cougar Soccer Club, taken care of. Everybody's got a regulation opportunity. We have an American Legion regulation baseball field that I haven't seen a game played there since 1982. Literally, not one. Nothing goes on that baseball field where the cages are across the street by the duck pond. Nothing happens there. Not a thing. Now, let me keep going. We have constituents who play bocce in this community, obviously, because we got a bocce court. We have tennis courts that have lights in every single park. Now, Memorial.
That's actually not true. But this is
Memorial
for public comment, so go ahead.
You feel free. You want to dance? We can do it.
No, we don't want to.
Okay, cool. No words. Okay, just making sure. So, as I will continue, since I've been here since 1965, I can give you the history. That Memorial Park basketball court, there's Greenacre history there. Because in 1973, my father brought suit against the municipality because the fence went up and the sign that's still there that says Maplewood residents only was an effort to keep kids out from other communities. The municipality lost that suit. You know why? Because it's Greenacre's money. That's why. Now, my question to you,
Mr. Edinburgh, I'm sorry.
I'm wrapping it up.
No, just the rules are, you don't address a single individual, you talk to us all. So
I'll talk to, I just happen to be looking at him because he's closest to me.
Okay.
I can look at you if you'd like.
Fine.
Are you good with that?
I'm fine with that.
All right, no problem. So I'll address you.
Okay.
As you well know,
Okay.
there's a sign over that basketball court that is still there that says Maplewood residents only. As you well know, since you knew my father, you knew his activism as far as this community, the state of New Jersey, and the United States of America was concerned. Now, my question with all these wonderful things that are going on in this community, do we make the choice to say to one constituency that you don't qualify for a regulation court? Because let me tell you something. If you play the game at an elite level and you play the game on a smaller court, you're not going to compete at that elite level against individuals that are playing on a regulation court. Just like in tennis, just like in everything else. It's a game of angles. If you're not 15 feet from the hoop on a free throw and you practice that and you're 14-8, you're going to be long every time you're in the game. Every single time. So, my question to this illustrious group of individuals up here is, will you say to that constituency that you are worthy, or will you say to them that you are not? That's the question. And there's nothing else that goes into that. And sir, I didn't play in the parks in Chicago, but Naismith did the peach basket thing. And we're not a peach basket community. We're a community that has the wherewithal, and we have the facilities and the capability to build a proper state-of-the-art facility, just like South Orange. Because when we fixed Memorial, we put up half-moon backboards. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, that was probably a thing when you were coming up playing ball? Half moons?
Yes.
Okay. But not a thing.
Correct.
Okay. But we have them, and that was, we're doing repairs to the court. So folks, I don't want to say anything disparaging to anybody on this committee, other than ask the question, when you look through that prism of another as an elected official, what would you see if someone laid out for you what I just laid out to you? There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Hi. I'm Lillian Hawkins. I'm a member of Soma Action, and I wanted to step up tonight to express, I'm also a resident of 18 Franklin Place in Maplewood. Just wanted to state my support for ordinance number 2901-18, the ordinance to create the Maplewood Community Board of Police. And also as a resident, not as a member of Soma Action, I'd just like to echo some of what Kasha said better than I can say it, but that I hope that when you're making a decision regarding the police chief, you'll take into account that we need someone who's willing to work with the community members who've been working so hard on removing bias from the police department. So thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Michael Paris, 18 Bill Road, Maplewood. I'm a member of Summer Action, and I'd like to speak in support of the Community Board on Police Accountability. I've lived here for about 20 years. I'm going to try to be fairly brief. I've seen a lot of police misconduct, and a lot of it doesn't possibly rise to the level of anything anyone could actually complain about. Some of it involves politeness, consent searches. I don't believe there's any such thing as a consent search. That's not for you or this board. But there's a lot that happens professionally. People think good police work is getting consent to do a search and doing it. I witnessed a stop in November. Very polite stop, a legitimate stop. Kids had the wrong plates on their car. Police officers even changed the plates for them. The right plates were in the trunk. But they did a full search of the car not once but twice. And 3 young African-American people stood there for 50 minutes. I watched all this, recorded some of it. Nothing to complain about. They drove away humiliated. Okay, so I think I commend you for what you're doing. I really appreciate the hard work you've all put in on this. It's really fantastic. But we have a lot of hard work to do. And I don't have a position on which person you choose for police. Police chief, I haven't been that involved in this conversation myself. But I've seen 20 or 30 stops that were nothing anyone could complain about, but deeply humiliating. Backpacks emptied on consent. I live right near Parker. I see a lot of traffic up and down Parker, kids going east. So this is important work, and this is the first step. I urge you to take it. I commend you for the hard work you've put in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bernard Pierre Lewis. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say, I just congratulate you on the work that you're doing, and I hope that this is not a handout, because us people of color, we're not looking for a handout. We just want somebody to do the job right, uphold the law, uphold the Constitution, judge people by merit and character instead of perception and image. So I hope we had a great chief, and I want better service, you know, where at the part where we live, because we've been neglected for so long. But I hope this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Craven. I live on Highland Place. And with regard to hiring the new police chief, as you know, the police department is currently running a trust deficit with the community. The police were known to have mistreated some of the community's kids in July of 2016, and that was compounded by the fact that no officers came forward in the ensuing year to call that out and to inform the community that mistreatment was going on. The good news is that there are people in this community who are doing their homework and doing the research, and Soma Justice, Soma Action, and the Coalition on Race have really put together a roadmap of solutions of how the police department can regain the community's trust. And I want to commend the Township Committee for taking one of those steps already with the creation of with the community oversight group. I want to urge the committee in selecting a police chief to really give a lot of weight to the candidate that you feel will best take seriously and commit to following those steps as much as possible and really acting on those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Shannon Cuddle on Maplewood Avenue. I just wanted to make a comment during this time on the agenda. I noticed that the Youth Advisory Council was listed as an item on the agenda tonight, and I just wanted to amplify that and raise that up, and thank you for putting that as a discussion item. I think that we've seen our youth leaders in our town be empowered and take charge, and I think that developing a youth advisory committee to our township committee would be something that would not just be an asset, but something that will improve the lives of not just our young people, but our community intergenerationally. And I look forward to having more discussion about that, and thank you for lifting that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Khadijah White. I live in the Hilton section. I found out I don't have to give my address, so I'm not going to. So I wanted to come and say thank you for your support of the police board. I want to thank you for sweeping necessary changes to the police department. And I am encouraged by it. I'm encouraged by Chief Duvall being a part of this process. I'm encouraged that, from what I understand, other police officers are also willing to kind of engage in this. But I just wanted to be the voice, and I think it's already been said a little bit, to say that it's not over, that this is just the beginning of the work. I feel like, as we move away from what happened in July 2016, the urgency starts to fade. But I think for those of us who every day see and get deluged by these videos of police officers who are in spaces where they're not being held accountable, where they're not being held in check, when many of us see on a regular basis the brutalization of Black bodies over and over and over again, and we see the lack of justice. I think we need to remember that this is urgent. I don't ever want to see a video of local teens being hurt that way. I don't want to continue fearing that my 6'3" husband walking around our neighborhood might be in danger of someone stopping him because he looks like a suspect. I want us to continue to be on the front lines of this, and I want us to remember that we fight because this is not just a fight. We're not fighting against the police, right? We're fighting because if they're doing their jobs well, then it serves us, and it serves them, right? There's no mentorship program, no cookout, no picnic, no slumber party. Nothing can take the place of just good everyday policing. So I thank you, and I hope we continue this work together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hiding under that hat, I didn't know it was you.
I'm in disguise. Good evening, my name is Audrey Rowe. I'm at 32 Oberlin Street in Maplewood, and I'm standing here as a citizen and also as a representative of the Community Coalition on Race to show support for Ordinance 2901-18, which will establish the Maplewood Community Board in policing. I think it's very important. This is a very important step in establishing for some and restoring for others our faith in our local police and having a vehicle to build positive relationships between the community and our police force. So we are very pleased that we've come to this point and hope that the board will decide to make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Okay, seeing no one else, we will close this public session. There's another one later on. We will move on to an ordinance on final passage.
So Mayor, item 10, ordinance number 2893-18, an ordinance to amend chapter 271 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Zoning and Development. This ordinance will permit the installation of a solar energy system within all zones within the Township of Maplewood.
Let me, I have to read it first. This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance dealing with solar energy?
Or smile on it.
Okay. Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. And Ms. Adams, can we get a motion?
Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. We have another ordinance on final.
Yes, Mayor. Item 11, ordinance 2899-18, an ordinance of the Township of Maplewood, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, authorizing the establishment of a government energy aggregation program.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance, which establishes a energy aggregation program for Maplewood? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. And Ms. Adams, can we get a motion?
Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
I second the motion.
Any discussion?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say congratulations. This is a major milestone for our town. The efforts of Robert McCoy, Tracy Woods, as well as Mayor DeLuca to bring a program to our town where we are able to have cleaner energy and less expensive energy. Going to save money in your pocketbooks in the future. So congratulations to both you, Robert, and you, Tracy, for a job well done. We have 6 towns that are joining us. We are the lead town. We are leading the way in being green. So thank you.
I was going to say the same thing, but he talked first.
Well, we're not going to be leading unless you make a motion to. You did?
I already did the
Oh,
motion.
yes. Then we need to vote.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. And we have a resolution 7818.
Yes, Mayor, item 12, a resolution authorizing the formation of a cooperative purchasing system named the Sustainable Essex Alliance Energy Procurement Cooperative, which is SEA-EPC, with the Township of Maplewood as lead agency for the purpose of purchasing electric generation services for residents of the Township of Maplewood and SEA-EPC member municipalities via a government energy aggregation program.
This might be the longest title I've ever seen on a resolution. We get a motion?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd move this to be the agency that can follow up, carry out the ordinance we just passed. So I make a motion to.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Given our last ordinance on final passage.
Yes, Mayor, item 13, ordinance number 2900-18, exceed municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank ordinance.
Now, this ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance, which establishes a cap bank? This has to do with our taxes, annual taxes. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, and can I get your card? Since you assigned this to me, I have to do this. I move the passage of this ordinance, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to post the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Can we have two ordinances on introduction?
Yes, Mayor, item 14, introduction of a new ordinance 2901-18, an ordinance to create the Maplewood Community Board on Police. This ordinance will create a committee to review designated police activity within the Township of Maplewood and to make recommendations to the Township Committee on improving the relationship between the Maplewood community and the Maplewood Police Department.
Mr. Mayor, I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, in a hearing to be held on April 17th, 2018. I'll second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to thank the many people who are here tonight, as well as several who are not. This ordinance would not have come about, this board would not have come about, but for the very hard and diligent work done by leaders in many of our community organizations, including the Community Coalition on Race, Soma Justice, and Soma Action. This was the product of several meetings that started out just talking about what it was we hoped to achieve, what were the goals, and then progressed through how we would operationalize that, and then into the nitty-gritty of how we would actually put this into an ordinance. And at every step of the way, the community groups were doing research, they were doing drafting, and they were moving the process forward. So tonight is the end of that process, where we now have an ordinance that is in front of us, that we'll be voting on tonight, and that we will be passing at our next meeting. But as more than one of the speakers tonight noticed, this is not otherwise the end. This is just the beginning
of a new chapter in which our police will benefit from the expertise, the feedback, the research, the input of residents into best practices, into training. And I would also like to recognize Acting Chief Duvall, who was at all of these meetings, on all of these calls, and very supportive of the process, and very helpful in helping us work through some of the potential legal and regulatory issues, as well as our Township Council, Mr. Desiderio. So, this really was a community effort to create this community board, and I really look forward to the great things that it can do for this town and for our police, and I'm really proud to be able to vote for this tonight.
I have a few comments as well, Mayor. As someone who, before I was elected, who was on the ground collaborating with our local community advocates about the need for such a board, those advocates are here this evening. I'm pleased to see. I'm really proud to see this becoming a reality. As someone earlier stated, we're going to be only the second town or city in the state to implement and eventually convene such a board. If you don't already know, Jersey City has one. Newark had one. It's in the courts right now. Ours is a fair and balanced approach, a true and reasonable collaboration with law enforcement. It is not like Newark's. This board will not be conducting its own internal affairs or investigations. It's also not like Jersey City's, which has no bite. Ours has some bite. It will inform. It will look at data. It will advise as to best practices. It will help in training and professional development. It will help better, it will look at trends, crime trends, and it will help law enforcement do its job better through accountability and transparency. I'd like to recognize by name, I didn't get to do that last time when we first talked about this, the incredible women, hardworking moms who took this initial idea and all the research, the tomes of research that we did initially, and compiled it together and made it really happen, turned it into a real board charter. Those folks are Aaron Scherzer on behalf of the Community Coalition on Race, Kelly Quirk on behalf of Soma Action, Khadijah Costley White, I should say Dr. Khadijah Costley White, Kasha Picards, Nina Essel from Soma Justice, also a couple men, Mr. Tim Katz from Soma Action, and Andrew Young from Soma Justice. I also salute the Community Coalition on Race, which was a very instrumental partner in this process. They certainly have the expertise when we're talking about fighting bias and realizing real integration in our community. And yes, I too like to thank and salute Acting Chief Duvall, who has been very collaborative and open-minded and hearted in this very difficult process. Thank you all very much. This could not have been possible without you. Thank you.
Okay, let's vote.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, our last ordinance on introduction.
Item 15, 2902-18, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements, the Township of Maplewood in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, appropriating the aggregate amount of $4,490,973 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $3,373,776 in bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof.
I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and the hearing to be held on April 17th, 2018.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We're now going to move into item number 16. That's selection of the police chief of the Maplewood Police Department. We'll be making comments and having a discussion here and then ultimately taking a vote. I have some comments that I'll start off. Tonight, we're making a critical decision that will affect our entire community for years to come. I want to thank all who participated in the discussions about our next police chief. We held an unprecedented community gathering for residents and others to meet with the two chief candidates. And we received feedback from 52 people who completed the post-meeting survey. We also received a number of phone calls and emails and engaged in many conversations about this matter. We appreciate the active engagement of our community. We are fortunate to have two local candidates, both graduates of Columbia High School, and both fiercely dedicated to their hometown. Both have risen through the ranks, serving in a number of positions from patrol officer to detective. Both have received extensive trainings over the years and earned numerous not condemnations. They've awards for their police work. I want to thank them for their service to Maplewood. Our challenge now is to pick one chief from these two qualified men, frankly, either of whom could do the job well. After taking into consideration many factors, my choice is Acting Chief Jimmy Duvall. Since August of last year, I've been impressed by Duvall's leadership skills and willingness to make changes in the department that will ensure another July 5th, 2016 will never happen again. He has restored working relationships with clergy members in the two towns and was a positive contributor during the planning process for the Community Board on Police. In the March 29th edition of the News Record, Duvall said, quote, "I expect the public to be treated with dignity and respect, including those persons under arrest. I will not tolerate officers' abuse of their authority. If we want to change the culture, we have to change the way officers think and treat members of the community," unquote. I totally agree with him on this. On community policing and interaction, Duvall has a stronger plan. In the same News Record article, he said the department will be changing to, quote, "a community-first model. We will put the needs of our community first by listening and becoming involved in our community events. Our officers will no longer drive around as strangers in our community," unquote. Duvall has been clear about the need for new and better training. He is advancing a customer relations training focus and asked for additional dollars in the 2018 training budget. He has a specific plan to institute a restorative justice program in dealing with our youth. He is working in partnership with civil rights and justice groups on this plan to positively work with young people. And with regard to traffic enforcement and pedestrian safety, Duvall has already begun changing our policing practices. I support his plan for a dedicated traffic unit to deal with the many traffic-related complaints we receive from our residents. This is a quality of life problem that for a long time needed to be addressed by the police and wasn't. And I believe Duvall has the stronger and better plan to do so. I want to salute both police chief candidates for their commitment to Maplewood and their work over the years on the police force. Their efforts have made our department better. In the end, I have to make a choice between two deserving candidates, and my choice is Jimmy Duvall. Anyone else want to make a statement?
I'll be happy to go next. No doubt this has been a very difficult decision. It difficult decisions in life, the important ones, especially one like this, decisions that are born out of a moral imperative to address grave inequities and bias in our community, born out of a need to restore justice and to build new bridges of trust and collaboration. Such decisions are indeed incredibly consequential and require thorough consideration. Deciding between these two great men required for me thoughtful consideration of the following factors: their credentials, their nexus to the community, their ability, their vision, their personality, community feedback from within the department and outside of the department, expert feedback, such as the Hiller-Hines report, their sincerity, heart, and compass or conviction for fundamental change, for a complete reboot of a department plagued for many years by serious deficiencies in training, in professional development and promotion, in diversity in hiring, in development and promotion, in best practices, like so many other police departments across the country. A former black box with little accountability and no transparency. I can say with clear conscience that I considered both men thoughtfully and carefully, given each a very fair shake. Both men are admirable, having served our community their entire professional lives. Thank you for your service. Both men were born and raised here and continue to have deep roots here. They know the community. They care about it. They've seen it grow and change through the years. Both men are liked by the community at large. We have heard from each of their respective fans. Both men are indeed very capable. They both have served in supervisory capacities in the department. However, one of the two men for me stands out for his vision for the department, for the changes that need to be made on day one. Structural changes to achieve a better working department, to fight crime and ensure public safety more efficiently and effectively while rebuilding trust with the community. Necessary changes to existing personnel to give opportunity to those who haven't had it, who weren't favored before. Changes to how we recruit new officers to the department. Changes in training and professional development and professional standards. And changes in how the police interact with the community daily. The community that the police are entrusted with serving and protecting. The time is now for a new order, folks, to rebuild a new culture in our police department. After we witnessed our children of color being herded out of town and beaten, there's no room for a wait and see approach. What are we waiting for? There's no let's see what the community wants. The community has spoken loudly. They've marched, they've made demands, and they've come to the table with a plan, a start. They're thirsty for action on day one. For me, one man stands out for his sincerity, for embracing the reality of where we are, how we got here, and where we need to go. One of the two men truly gets that we have serious bias in the department and the racism that exists in our schools,
that we have experienced outside of the department in our community. For me, one of the two men truly embraces the need to promote our officers of color into leadership positions. One of the two men is realistic about the challenges that we're faced with. Our not having some come to Jesus moment overnight because of some speech or call to action. The man who recognizes that this journey will not be popular. It is not popular. Change does not happen overnight. In fact, we've heard already from some union folks about the resistance to change. One of these two men is more courageous to move the needle towards greater equity, justice, and transparency in spite of that resistance. For me, that man is Jimmy Duvall, to lead us into a new era of policing in our community while remaining tough on crime. By his own admission, Mr. Duvall isn't the most artful in presentation at times. He isn't the most comfortable in crowds. He isn't a press secretary by any means. But he is truly committed to bringing justice to the community. He has the courage and the vision, and he's been very willing to collaborate with the public while adhering to the limitations that we face, as someone already stated earlier, by current Attorney General guidelines and state law. I have faith in you, sir. I trust you, sir. But this moral imperative doesn't end with this appointment. It's merely the beginning. We all have a role to play in this. As the governing body, we took our first step this evening, introducing a community board on police. And we must, as the governing body, remain more engaged in our policing, demanding greater transparency from our department, considering new initiatives and policies that could support this effort. Every single resident out there has a role to play by opening their hearts, joining hands and working with their neighbors, looking out for each other, protecting each other, being more engaged and active in their public safety, encouraging empathy, speaking up, and showing up. Finally, last but not least, I'd like to address some of our union guys, our local PBA, some of whom might take this as a loss or use it as another reason to further divide or check out. I sincerely ask you to join us in this effort. Please, please support us. Join us. Stand with us. We can't do this without you. Your support is key to our success. We need the four mottos of the local PBA. We need you to bring your compassion, your integrity, your professionalism, and dedication. This will make all of us better in the long run together. Thank you.
Anyone else want to make any comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I consider this perhaps the most important decision we've made in the 3 years I've served on the Township Committee, so I'd like to take a few moments to explain my view of the background behind this situation and the reasoning behind my vote. July 5th, 2016 occurred in the middle of my first year on the Township Committee. I was shocked and saddened by what occurred that night and committed myself in the aftermath of that incident to do whatever I could using the power of this office to make sure that nothing like that ever happened in Maplewood again. Knowing the significant changes that would be required in the department, I stepped forward to be chair of the Township's Public Safety Committee so that I could play a key and active role in rebuilding our police department, creating a more positive relationship between our police officers and our residents,
and restoring our community's trust in the department. Over the last 20 months, I have devoted a great deal of time to trying to understand the problems in our police department and determine how we, as the governing body, can best address and resolve them so our police officers can do their job for a department they can be proud of, and so our town can have the police department it deserves. One that treats all people, regardless of age or race or any other characteristic, with decency, courtesy, and respect. In the wake of July 5, I was appalled and dismayed to learn the extent of the dysfunction in our police department. Officers feared, but did not necessarily respect the department's leadership. Officers were afraid to speak up, whether to offer new ideas and suggestions or to question inappropriate or even arguably illegal orders for fear of reprisals. Certain officers were clearly favored over others, given preferential assignments, while others, particularly union leaders or others who challenged the chief's decisions, were singled out for discipline or held back from opportunities that could have led to promotion. Officers lacked sufficient training in key areas like de-escalation and crowd control. Morale was terrible. Productivity was low, officer turnover was high, and there was significant division within the ranks. An environment of us versus them was prevalent inside the department, and that toxic us versus them atmosphere unfortunately spilled over at times to relations between officers and the community. This was seen most clearly, though not exclusively, on the evening of July 5, 2016. Following a lengthy and frankly unsatisfying review by the county prosecutor's office, followed by more delays in our department's own internal affairs process, which is still not complete, last July, more than a year after the incident, the Township Committee and the public were finally able to see the videos and hear the tapes of that evening. The reaction from this body was immediate and decisive. We recognized that new leadership, new attitudes, and new philosophies were necessary to reform the department. We removed the chief and the captain from their positions and have sought out ways to change the culture of the department and rebuild the relationship between the force and the public. We've already taken several steps in that direction. For example, we have doubled the MPD's training budget for this year to make sure our officers have the opportunity to receive the best education they can on key parts of their job, especially with respect to community policing. We have also worked with active community organizations to create the Community Board on Police, which we just voted on a few moments ago. But the most important step in this process, in my opinion, is the one that concludes tonight, the selection of a new chief of the Maplewood Police Department. We began the process by announcing our plan to conduct a nationwide search for a new chief. Then we were made aware of a state law that arguably prohibited us from hiring a chief from outside the department. While I had some doubts about where that statute applied to Maplewood, I concurred with my colleagues that a legal battle over the issue was not worthwhile, nor did I want the chief we hired to have a cloud of uncertainty over his or her head as the issue made its way through the courts. So we solicited applicants only from within the MPD, and the candidates were Acting Chief Duvall and Lieutenant Kevin Kish. Tonight we choose our new chief from between these two very dedicated, longtime officers. I will cast my vote tonight for Lieutenant Kish. Kevin Kish is a collaborative and collegial leader who is well-liked and highly respected by his fellow officers, and also admired and trusted by the community. These are assets that would be extremely valuable in a chief in order to make true progress towards the kind of police department we all wish to see. He can unify our officers behind his vision, motivate them to make the necessary changes to better serve all of our community, and inspire confidence in our residents that the department is committed to protecting and serving everyone in Maplewood. Acting Chief Duvall, to his credit, inherited a very challenging situation last August when he was appointed to this position, and he has worked very hard to help the department and community recover from the wounds of July 5, 2016. And I do not mean tonight to take anything away from his efforts. However, 8 months after his appointment as acting chief, unfortunately, I still see some of the same climate issues that plagued the tenure of our prior chief. There continues to be dissension in the department with a feeling of opposition between leadership and much of the rank and file. Morale has not improved as I had hoped. The us versus them attitude continues to be a strong presence in the department, and I think it will be a barrier to overcoming divisions within the department, which will in turn be an obstacle to permanently improving relations with the community. If Acting Chief Duvall is chosen tonight, I sincerely hope that he proves me wrong. and I pledge to do my best as a member of the Township Committee, as chair of the Public Safety Committee, and a resident to help him do so. But at the end of the day, I believe that Lieutenant Kish gives us the best chance to raise morale within the department, to bring about the reform we need, implement effective community policing, and restore the trust of our community in the police department. Over the past month, we have engaged in a very transparent process that invited the public to meet, hear, and question the candidates, and to give the Township Committee their feedback and opinions. At the community forum, we heard from multiple young people who also happen to be persons of color, who spoke passionately about how Lieutenant Kish had personally, profoundly, and positively impacted their lives. That evening, we also saw clearly the support and respect that his fellow officers have for him. I believe that they will follow his lead, even when it requires difficult changes, compromise, or sacrifice on their part. The community survey of those who attended the forum similarly showed overwhelming support for and confidence in Lieutenant Kish. Moreover, I have been barraged over the past few weeks with strong words of support for Lieutenant Kish from seemingly every corner of Maplewood. For all these reasons, and with all due respect to my colleagues and Acting Chief Duvall, I will vote tonight in support of Lieutenant Kevin Kish to be the next chief of the Maplewood Police Department. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. This has been a long year or so since July 5th, and as my colleagues have very aptly stated, and I won't be redundant as the evening progresses, I will say that both candidates were, as we know, homegrown and both very capable and qualified, and I think both proactive in changes they would make to the department, except that that wasn't evident by Lieutenant Kish. So I was disappointed at that there was no plan from him for restructuring and addressing the issues that we've all talked about here. So I think that is the main reason that I'm going to be supporting Acting Chief Duvall tonight to be our next chief. I think he's, while I've seen it before in my work within municipalities over the last couple of decades, where a chief of police takes over as chief after coming up through the ranks and working with, being friends with, buddies with, colleagues with fellow officers, his or her fellow officers. Unfortunately, it's only been his that I've had experience with. But as difficult as it is to move from a colleague or a buddy to a boss, the person who is going to be making that move needs not to be a strict enforcer of the rules that he or she lays out in the department. I see fairness in planning and giving opportunity to the officers underneath Chief Duvall, and a stronger plan for restructuring and revamping the organization with both respect, work there, and expectations of the officers beneath him to follow the rules that are laid out, that they know very well, while also giving them the opportunity to advance and progress and to be able to call out authority when see something wrong, which is exactly the opposite of what the force felt they could do on July 5th. And I think that's vitally important. And so I appreciate that. It's not a popularity contest. None of us knows day to day exactly what goes on. None of us knows the number of who likes who better and who's going to bring morale up. We don't know. We only know what we've seen firsthand and what plans we have heard made. So because of his forward thinking and ability to structure and offer suggestions to this body on restructuring that would take away some of the issues that were part of the problem in the past, taking away his own authority to appoint people to positions of authority within the police department, I strongly support Chief Duvall.
First, I would like to start off by thanking Lieutenant Kish and Acting Chief Duvall for their willingness to serve as chief of our community. I would also like to thank my colleagues for their time and energy that they put forth in this process. I would also like to thank and recognize the numerous amount of people who reached out in support of both Lieutenant Kish and Acting Chief Duvall, several who are here tonight. On August 1st, 2017, we as a TC committed to changing the culture of our police department. There was a deep and clear concern regarding how our police department interacted and treated members of color within our community. The TC went to work addressing the administration and looking at ways to improve the relationship with our community. A mentor program emerged. Qualified minority candidates, women and people of color, or both, were brought onto the police department. As of today, 66% of our most recent hires fit those two graphics. Tonight, through the great efforts of several community organizations, the CCR, Soma Action, and Soma Justice, also here tonight, we will introduce a community police board ordinance. These are actions and part of the ongoing efforts to address the external relationship of our community with our police department. But I think that it will be challenging to provide our community with the type of policing and police department culture we desire if the women and people of color who wear the same uniform are not respected by all of their white peers. Unfortunately, we have a race relations issue inside our department. It is an issue that needs to be addressed. Sadly, a culture well before August 1st has developed and festered where women officers and officers of color have been impacted. We have a challenge ahead. We must continue to work now on a parallel with the goal of being both diverse and inclusive inside our police department as well as in our overarching community. We still have work to do. We need our entire police force to understand that the culture of the community which we aspire to achieve does not end at the doorstep of our police department, but actually must be one of its origin points. As a TC, we will continue to take action. We will collaborate and make changes needed at all levels and within organizations affiliated with the police department, including at the policy level. Acting Chief Duvall has recognized this major issue and has already made direction to address it. His efforts are evidenced by the diversity of the residents, organizations, and fellow officers here tonight. I have been impressed with the work of Acting Chief to enhance our pedestrian safety, including our drop-off program for our schools. His support of our youth in town with the Youth Justice Program. His commitment to the mentor program. He has been accessible and responsible to the Township Committee and many residents in the community. The importance to provide opportunity for women officers, women sergeants, women lieutenants, and women captains. Provide opportunity for officers of color, sergeants, lieutenants, and captains. The development of a new traffic safety program. Bringing the clergy of faith back into the building. Officer Rob Smith benefited tremendously due to a recent event which he encountered earlier this year. That was because of the actions of Acting Chief Duvall. He was engaging in a key cornerstone in the development of our community police board. In the first time in the history of our police department, Acting Chief Duvall has appointed a woman, an African-American woman, to head up our detective department. Transformation progress has been made. And not just quotas, meaningful progress. 50 years ago tomorrow, April 4th, 1968, Memphis, Tennessee, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. He was fighting for ideals to several that just did not make sense. But for an overwhelming majority, they do today. I look forward to the role and leadership that Lieutenant Kish will bring in collaborating with Acting Chief Duvall to improve our culture internally in service to his hometown to make a difference which we all want to achieve. Tonight, I will be choosing Acting Chief Duvall for the position of Police Chief. Thank you.
Okay, if no one else has anything to say, I'd like to put forth a motion to appoint Jimmy Duvall as Chief of Maplewood Police effective April 3rd.
Second.
No?
No.
Today's the
Third.
3rd. Today's the 3rd.
Fourth.
4th? April 4th, 2018. We'll get it right someday.
I didn't mean April 2nd.
Okay.
Tomorrow. He's going to be sworn in tomorrow.
All right, he'll be sworn in tomorrow morning. So my motion, which has been seconded, is that we appoint Jimmy Duvall as Chief of Police effective April 4th, 2018. Please call the roll.
I'll get a second.
Ms.
Sorry, I
Adams.
didn't hear you. Okay.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
No.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Congratulations. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, 5-minute break.
Dean, watch your microphone.
Yeah, no, I turned it off.
Okay, we're gonna get started again.
Thank you for coming here.
I'm going to say, good to see you. Pick up that conversation. Sure. I'm easily found. I know. I will get you, even though I can't sign.
You don't like that? No. It's the best I can do.
All right.
Okay, we have 6 discussion items. First one is the Maplewood Memorial Park Conservancy proposal. Ms. Adams?
Mayor, the Memorial Park Conservancy has been busy even in their infancy. And one of the issues they're addressing, and I need this committee to support or not, but I'd prefer you support it, is a proposal for memorial trees for Maplewood Memorial Park, because this, if I'm not mistaken, has to be done by ordinance, right? However we're going to do
Yes,
this.
we're going to set up fees, yeah.
All right, so what they've done, and I can circulate this proposal to my colleagues before the ordinance comes up if we form one. There's been a 3-year hiatus on planting memorial trees, the trees, and there's concern over, the types of trees being planted was not really regulated. The cost of them often fell onto the township. There's also the possibility of the whole park looking a little bit too much like a cemetery than a park. So they're addressing those kinds of issues. So they have 2 proposals, alternatives for asking people to donate to a living memorial, such as a tree. A general fund will be established to support the planting and maintenance of all the trees in the park. The fund will allow donations of any size and will be acknowledged by a certificate and listing on the Conservancy's website in selected printed materials and as Conservancy events with a series of gifts, including Conservancy membership and things like that. So they would have levels of what you could contribute for that in memorial. Then there's a memorial tree program, will be an opportunity for someone to donate a specific tree. And they're working on ways of acknowledging and remembering, including a little tag on the tree for certain levels of donation. So a tag that identifies the specimen of the tree along with the memorial stuff. So instead of, the cement thing in the ground and that sometimes gets tripped over or hinders root development and all that kind of thing. So it'll just be guided as opposed to just anybody picking a tree they want to plant. So it'll be in conjunction with CHIPO, with State Historic Preservation Office, because they have to approve, as this is on the National Register, they have to approve any planting. So this would keep those controls on there and allow people to have a living memorial to those that they want to plant. So I was hoping we could move forward with asking Mr. Desiderio to be an ordinance on this so that DPW and the Conservancy have rules to follow in our ordinance. So
I don't see any issue whatsoever. I think we should move forward.
Do you know, and the fact, if the answer is no, won't necessarily dissuade me, but is this something that's been done by other communities in New Jersey or in New York where there's sort of precedent out there?
Yeah, they have surveyed other parks. A handful of them that they include in their proposal are Anderson Park in Montclair, Brookdale Park, Reeves Reed Arboretum in Summit, Branch Brook Park, Prospect Park, and Central Park, and all those, they went through all their guidelines and how they do it. Some do it with like a general plaque with little, where identifies, some do it with a map and identifies where the memorial trees are and things like that.
Sure. So are there any, or do they already have, or are they planning to present sort of different options?
Yes.
Okay.
There's, price options and notification. on all that.
But also sort of how it would look, I mean, a couple different things, because it's one of those things where I'd have a hard time voting yes or no until I had a better sense of how it was going to look.
Of how, what was going to.
Of how the, you know, a plaque or something
I think their
acknowledging.
main, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think their main thing is the, if someone buys a particular tree, because that's a higher donation amount, they could pick a specific specimen tree, and that tree would be marked with tags that would identify not only the type of tree, but, and small, you know, tasteful, small tags, not any big thing, nothing that's going to harm the tree, and nothing that's going to be on the ground.
And if,
Where they are now.
and if you give to the fund, then you'll just be included in a list of people who have given to the fund.
Right.
Not even in the park at all.
So it's just kind of limiting, but still allowing the memorial to be happening.
Okay.
We okay to send this to Mr. Desiderio to write up?
Yes.
Sure. Sure.
No, I'll give it, I'll email it.
Yeah, email Word copy would be easier. Okay, we'll go to number 2, and this is just a report from the Township Sustainability Committee. You saw on the agenda tonight 2 of the things we've all been discussing for the past few meetings, and that's our energy aggregation. That's moving along, and we're shooting for actually getting the program implemented in the last quarter of this year. We'll actually have a cleaner and cheaper source of energy at the end of this year. A couple other things. When we started this is the evolution from the Township's Committee's Environmental Committee, and we called it the Township Sustainability Committee, which is sounds bureaucratic. We're now suggesting that we change the name to Sustainable Maplewood, and that there'd be a steering committee of Sustainable Maplewood. It just rolls off the tongue easier, Sustainable Maplewood. It just
sounds like Sustainable Jersey.
It does, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So that's one proposed change to the ordinance. The second is right now, for the first couple of years, we thought it was important to have the mayor sit on here. It may be in the future that there are other members of the Township Committee who are more interested in sitting on it than the mayor, although the way the ordinance is written now, it has to be the mayor. So what I would suggest is that we change it from mayor as chair, 1 Township Committee member, to 2 Township Committee members, 1 of which will serve as chair, and if the mayor wants to be that person, then he or she can let that happen.
Mr. Mayor, so would the 2, would the mayor sort of designate or appoint that person, or would it be sort of go through the same process we go through to pick liaison and committee assignments?
Go through the same process, pick a liaison.
Okay, that's what I would prefer as well.
Yeah. Okay, if you do that, then I will write up some changes and give it to Mr. Desiderio. We can make the changes to that ordinance.
Sounds good.
And one quick note, intuitively too, since we have the green team and the environmental, theoretically, the liaisons may be the ones that are chosen for it.
Right, exactly. Okay, number 3, the Township Committee taking a position. So for the first time in, let's see, I think it's 70 years, yes, 70 years.
1906.
No, 1950. The 2020 census, for the first time since 1950, 70 years, there will be a question asking people to specify their citizenship status. Now, the administration, the Trump administration, is saying, you know, that they just want to be able to enforce the Voting Rights Act better, but clearly that is not believable. It's not even believable by the Census Scientific Advisory Committee, which thinks that the decision is based on flawed logic, and it could threaten the accuracy and confidentiality of the head count. And they're worried about the implications of attitudes about the Census Bureau, that it could jeopardize its nonpartisan representation. There's nothing that has been tested. They just have decided to put it on. I can tell you, because we did a huge push in 2010 for the census here in Maplewood. We ended up one of the few towns that had a negligible drop from the 2000 census. We had 1 person less. That was because we pushed really hard. We pushed hard in areas which traditionally you don't see responses from the census. And I'm concerned that if there's a citizenship question, people are going to be afraid of answering the entire census.
Of course they are.
We worked hard with the Haitian community over on, we were on Irvington Avenue a lot, promoting this, down at the bank on Jacoby Street, really promoting this, ensuring people that they could, if they fill this out, there'd be no retribution. And I'm really concerned. So just for our own benefit and just for the moral principle here, we ought to take a position in opposition to including the citizenship question on the 2020 census. And I would move that.
I'd second that.
I agree 100%. I mean, I'm hopeful that the courts will do something, even if the political branch won't. But I think we should make a clear statement here that this is not acceptable. I mean, the purpose of the census is so we have an honest sense of what are our numbers, who are we?
And really, constitutionally, it sets up the representation in Congress.
Absolutely.
So it's not about it doesn't say citizens, it just says people, you know, it's a population.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to do.
You know, and the idea, you know, it seems like every time this administration tries to enforce the Voting Rights Act, it's to prevent people from voting, not to encourage not to give people their rights. So,
okay, so we have a motion and it's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, and we'll work on that, Mr. Desiderio. Okay, Mr. McGee, the gun redemption program?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a couple of Saturdays ago, I had the opportunity to go to Newark for the March of Our Lives. I was joined by the mayor and Committeeman Daffis, and most importantly, I was joined by my daughter and also the many youth that attended. And you know, it moved me, honestly. You know, one of the things that was resonating as I left and while I was there as well was that, like, these youth want action. They're tired of the BS that, frankly, they've been getting from us as as politicians, if you will, from not just from DC, but really from the municipal level. Also from municipal level all the way up to DC. They're tired of just the rhetoric and the excuses. You know, and so I explored the possibility of, you know, finding a way to potentially, since with gun action, see if there was a way we could prevent, you know, allocating more permits in town for guns, you know, just cutting it off. So Mr. Desiderio's assistance, I realized is something which we cannot do. But the good news is we just, you know, the state legislation just passed several bills which we supported on March 6th in terms of tightening the gun laws for future gun purchases. I'm going to read some stats to you that I got from Acting Chief Duvall, which I think are very important for the public to know as well as my colleagues up here. In 2017, there were 90 firearm applications processed in the town of Maplewood. And year to date, there were 17 firearm applications right here in our town. In addition, there were 56 firearm ID cards issued in 2017 and 11 so far this year. Just to give you a little background, firearm ID cards are for the purchasing of ammo, rifles, and shotguns. Although rifles and shotguns are not registered in New Jersey, there are no restrictions on how many long arms can be purchased at any given time. In addition, there were 140 permits to purchase a handgun in the town of Maplewood in 2017. And so far this year, 29. So just so you know that a permit to purchase a handgun is valid for 180 days. And usually there's a restriction that's limited to one handgun per purchase per month. But then again, so you're looking at still 140 and also 29 this year alone. And also, this is the most telling note, is that dealers and collectors are excluded from that particular one handgun purchase per month. So even in our town of 24,600 people, there are a lot of guns floating around Maplewood. Issue. So one thing I know that's happened in the past in the state of New Jersey, there's been a gun amnesty law or a buyback law. And one thing that I would like for us to support tonight, and also if we do move forward with the resolution, I'll also invite our South Orange to join us too, is to ask the Essex County prosecutor and the sheriff to implement a gun amnesty program. So the guns that are currently in the inventory of our town of Maplewood can be brought back in, and we can reduce the amount of guns that are in our town today.
So do you want to make that motion that we ask the prosecutor and Essex County prosecutor and Essex County sheriff to work with us rather on instituting a gun redemption program?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second? You're seconding it?
Yeah.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Absolutely.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Sure, yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Terry DeLuca?
Yes. Absolutely, sure, yes. That's great. We covered it. Thank you very much. So we did, Mr. Daffis and I were at the Hall of Records on another matter, and we did run into the sheriff and mentioned this to him, and he encouraged us to work with the prosecutor. So, Mr. Desidero, if you can write that up, we can get to the prosecutor and start those conversations.
Thank you.
And then you'll take responsibility to reach out to our colleagues in South Orange?
Absolutely.
And, you know, it may be that if we do this, we could just let the folks in Milburn know and in West Orange. You'd be surprised where people have guns.
Right.
You know, they're legacy guns, and they get from parents and people around, and guns are left in houses when they're sold and all kinds of stuff. So.
Right. Our youth should know we are listening. Let's get these guns off the street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of youth, Mr. Daffis, number 5, Youth Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, an evening that's focusing on youth tonight, right? It's a wonderful thing. I'd like for us to consider a youth advisory committee. It would be an opportunity for our local youth to have a voice in their local government on issues that have, not just on school issues, which they already have a voice within the school district, but on issues that affect them from their local government in terms of recreation, in terms of some of the things we've talked about tonight, and many, many others. It's a great opportunity to leverage on the advocacy that's been going on. Our youth are engaged, and it's a wonderful opportunity to continue empowering them. We used to have a youth recreation advisory committee many moons ago, which was eventually disbanded for lack of interest. And we could use that as a model in fashioning and creating an advisory committee. And I'm happy to work with Mr. Desiderio on that. As Ms. Shannon Cuttle spoke earlier this evening about this is an idea that came to us from Shannon Cuttle to Frank McGehee, Deputy Mayor McGehee, and myself. And we initially spoke about the possibility of having 5 members appointed by the Township Committee, 8th grade to seniors, and to serve for a period of 1 year, and to attend monthly meetings after school, obviously. Any thoughts or feedback?
I mean, we talked about it previously. I think it makes a lot of sense. Our youth have shown by tonight and in recent weeks and months that they are wanting to be engaged. They want their voice to be heard. I think they also want to learn the most important thing, which even all of us have learned in our positions, that's the process.
Yes.
And you know, once you get behind the curtain, and I think giving them exposure to it as soon as possible makes a lot of sense. So I'm very much in support of this.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions, if that's okay.
Oh, good.
The first is, and I apologize if this should have been clear, but would the Youth Advisory Committee that you're proposing advise on youth-specific issues, or would they sort of advise on potentially anything?
It would advise on issues that they think affect the youth. So let's say we're talking about, you know, the Maplewood Pool or other recreation department issues, or we're considering changes in zoning, or I mean, just about anything that could potentially affect the youth and their families. I mean, housing, affordability, you know, and as Mr. McGehee mentioned, it would really bring them into the foray in terms of learning how the process works.
So this would be more broad in scope, more general.
More broad in
than
scope.
Just issues that are youth specific. This would be.
That's right.
Almost any issue that could impact youth from their perspective. Okay. The other question would be for Mr. Desiderio, and that would be, I know this is something that we came across in a very different circumstance of the Community Board on Police, but are there any issues that we should be aware of as we go into this with having a board that has minors as members, you know, and does the fact that the board would be comprised entirely of minors, you know, change that for better or worse? And, you know, and I know that if we don't currently, we at least in the past have had a Columbia High School student on the Environmental Advisory Committee, and that hasn't, from my time as liaison, didn't create any issue. But I'd just be curious to hear whether you think there's any issues that we should keep in mind.
The answer is, off the top of my head, I can't think of any. I haven't seen a draft of what you may be thinking about. I guess my only question would be from an organizational standpoint, you know, will the members of the committee respect whoever chairs the committee if it is another youth? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, that's a logistical issue, and whether or not you're going to have a liaison for purposes of supervision or not. But I haven't seen it. But no, I don't. The answer is I don't see anything in particular. I think it's more in how it's going to function. As Mr. McGehee said, you know, how is the process going to work and the like, okay? You know, how are they going to communicate to each other when there's a meeting, and those types of things. So I think there may be some logistical issues in its implementation, but I don't see any prohibitions in having that happen.
Okay. And the idea would not be that this committee would have access to confidential information, I presume. Okay. And are you thinking that the meetings would be sort of open to the public?
Probably.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so all the rest of the youth. Yeah, why not?
Right.
Mr. Desiderio, you remember we had the Youth Recreation Advisory Committee that we set up. We set up an ordinance. Yes, Adam's son was on there, and we got to, actually for that, it was the recreation director who appointed people. We had 2 people for each grade and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think there's ways to do it, but I think that I just think you have to have some degree of supervision.
yeah, I think you might want to think a little bit more than a higher number than 5. 5 seems a little low. The other thing is,
What do you recommend? I mean, on the previous committee, there were 10. Do you think that's too many?
I think a couple more would be good, maybe 7.
Okay.
Because you want to be able to have enough representation. Also, I would suggest that you reach out to like the library. They have a very strong relationship with young people. We actually now on the library board, we alternate between a high school student and a middle school student who sits in on the meetings.
That's
and
great.
they just sit in and ask questions, and they don't vote on the board, but they're there as our guest and participate. If we go into executive session, they are excused. And also the rec committee, the recreation department, health department. It would just be good to touch base with some of these departments. I think, for example, Candace Davenport would be a great source to talk about youth health issues, just so it broadens your thinking a little bit about the charge you're going to give the committee.
Yeah, and I would also think about the makeup of it, and where it's diverse in age, sex, that.
Yep.
7 might be too small. But
Yeah, okay, great. And once we get this, if we're moving forward with this, I will collaborate with you on putting it together. Great, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Manning, you're up with the Phoenix Advisors recommendation.
Right, I've given you all a copy of the Phoenix Advisors proposal. Basically, we're getting ready to do both probably some note sales to extend those notes for about 3 months because we're not in the position to sell bonds right at this moment. There's a lot of work to do. Phoenix would help us do that work. All of our bond, whenever we've had a bond sale, Phoenix, for the last 2 bond sales, has helped us for a fee do all the types of things that our auditor and our bond counsel are not really allowed by law to do. So they help us early planning, they all the way through approvals, rating agency strategies on when to sell them, etc. And both Mr. McManaman and also Joseph Facone, our auditor, have encouraged me to encourage you to have them come on board and soon so that we can start to work for the sales of the notes and bonds.
So do we need to just pass a motion to engage them?
Yes.
Well, you need to pass a resolution or I'll memorialize it.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? So this is a standard?
Yes.
Yes. In the.
Let me see if one second.
Oh, sure. Hold on. It's, I think it's $1,500 for note sales and $12,000 for bond sales. All in.
Yeah, it was 11 and 12, right? Yeah. So this is a company that we've used in the past, and you've been satisfied with their work?
Yes. Sold bonds. We've gotten good rates.
They have a huge list of towns that they work with.
Yes.
Is everyone okay moving forward on this?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, so can we get a motion to engage Phoenix Advisors for the sale of our notes and upcoming bond and note sale?
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mayor, I don't think we took a roll call on the Youth Advisory Committee. I think we all agreed we're moving forward.
Yeah, we don't need to do that, yeah.
Okay, great. Just checking. Thank you.
When it comes back on an ordinance, it'll be on for discussion. At that point, we'll authorize Mr. Desiderio to put it on for introduction.
Right, thank you.
Item number 18, this is the Maplewood Village Alliance. Ms. Fritzen, you want to explain this to us?
Sure, Mayor. Item 18 and 19 are both the 2018 SID budgets with the 2% increase. And I also have copies available here for the public if anybody wanted one. And what you'll be doing tonight is simply just accepting the budget of the 2 SIDs. No further action unless you want to amend the budget in some way. Then the next step would be advertising the budget with a hearing date of May 15th in the Maplewood South Orange News Record. And then also noticing every property owner in both SIDs as to the hearing, and on their particular budget, they would receive the hearing notice and the budget for May 15th.
Anyone have any questions on these 2 budgets? Can we get a motion to accept the Maplewood Village Alliance Special Improvement District budget for 2018 with the hearing to be held on May 15th, 2018? Somebody want to move that?
Mr. Mayor, I will move the approval of these 2018 proposed budgets as read.
And let's do it one at a time. So it would be Village Alliance. Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll on Village Alliance accepting the budget.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
And on the Springfield Avenue Partnership Special Improvement budget for 2018, can we get a motion to accept in the hearing on May 15th? I'll move it.
Second.
Is that because I
Please
didn't
call
put
the roll.
initials?
Getting tired?
Is that because I didn't put initials there?
No.
No.
Ms. Adams is orchestrating who should be
Yeah.
doing what.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move adoption of the consent agenda items 1 through 5.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
It may just be a typo, but is there an item 20 that we?
Let's hope not.
I just want to make sure, Ms. Fritzen, is there something that we're missing?
Where?
Or it may just be a
Missing the
mistake.
number 20.
Okay.
Oh, the number?
Yeah, we went from 19 to 21.
Oh.
Kind of like your age.
Wasn't,
right.
Okay.
Just making sure we're paying attention, right?
Okay, item number 22, public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the Township Committee? Just give us your name and address and share your comments with us.
Nathaniel Tabora, 55 Van Ness Terrace. Yeah. Actually, to Mr. Daffis's notion to create a youth advisory committee, I would highly recommend that. I was a student of the SOMSD school district up until this year. I'm currently now at Seton Hall Prep. However, I still have some contact with the community within Columbia. And I do know for a fact that there are many willing voices that would be open and definitely willing to join something like this currently. However, I would still, it was brought up, I would suggest some liaison or some wrangler, I would say, to make sure that nothing gets out of hand. They are very passionate. Yes, to put it lightly, passionate group of people. And I know that their opinions can sometimes, their emotions, I should say, outweigh their actual, opinion and fact. So I would therefore say I would absolutely enjoy that this would be passed on, and I would absolutely also be willing to help sort of create this advisory and keep it working.
Great. What's your name again?
Nathaniel Tabora.
How do you spell your last name?
Tabora.
And where may I reach you so we can talk offline? What's your email?
Yeah, through email?
Offline. No, offline.
Give it to Ms. Fritzen.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Contact.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you, Nathaniel.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Anyone want to give your email out? No? Okay. Next up, administrator reports. Mr. Manning.
Yes, as you know, our chief financial officer has resigned. Tomorrow's his last day. I need a motion, if you would, to appoint Paulette Ercolano to be the interim CFO pending the resolution of a search for a new CFO.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just so the record's clear, she has all the necessary.
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely.
So there's
Yes.
been a motion made to appoint an interim CFO. Made and seconded. Please call
Ms.
the roll.
Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you.
And that's basically it, except that there are still, major winds and things related to the storms that we've had. We're still going around town. If you look on the Maplewood website under spring rakeout, you will see you can get a map and find what section you're in, so that if you have any other additional things, please bring them out to the curb. We're going to be doing it simultaneously.
While you're cleaning the snow.
Yes, while we're doing that.
Anything for Mr. Manning?
When does the farmer's market start?
Oh, the first Monday in June.
Day in June.
Good question, yes. We have someone today who wanted to sell medicinal mushrooms, so we're contemplating that. Yum, yum.
To you in particular? Or
No, at the farmer's market. The farmer's market.
All right, Mr. Desiderio.
No, after Mr. Manning, I have nothing to report.
Nothing, no mushrooms or anything?
No what? No,
Mushrooms?
nothing on mushrooms.
Okay.
No.
Are you sure it wasn't the guy who does sell regular mushrooms? From Maplewood, he works in the summit, he sells at the summit.
Yeah.
Or it's
Ms. Fritzen.
Couple items, Mayor.
Of course.
Yesterday was petition filing deadline for the municipal office and county committee. And I just wanted to report that received petitions from two filers from the Democratic Party for Township Committee, Ms. Adams and Mr. Lembrick. And no petitions were filed by any Republican for municipal office. Another item, is that on Friday, we'll be having the, actually, it was during the power emergency, of which we had no power, that we had to cancel the AED CPR classes. So we have 2 sessions on Friday, and we were able to add a 3rd session for Monday. So I think we'll be probably at the end of that have at least 60 employees that are certified in AED and CPR, which is great. The other thing is we're going to be putting a defib in 106 Burnett very shortly, as soon as it arrives. Thank you.
I have 2 questions for Mr. Ritson.
Good.
The first, and this is something that if you don't know, you can maybe report back to us at the next meeting, but the voter registration deadline for the primary, and also whether your office will be doing a late night.
We will definitely be doing a late night. We always do. And I just don't have that date in front of me at the moment.
That's fine. If maybe you could bring that to the April 17 meeting, and because it won't be before then.
No.
So, all right. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. The other question I had was we received a list of the Democratic County Committee registration. Was there also registration for the Republican County Committee?
No, sir. That's every 4 years.
That's every 4 years. Okay, so that'll be up again in 2020. Okay, thank you.
With the census. Anything else for Ms. Fritzen? If not, we'll go to reports for elected officials. Ms. Adams?
No report, Mayor.
Mr. McGehee?
One quick thing.
Or whatever they called us at that rally. They messed up our names when they introduced us at the Newark rally. It was pretty interesting.
Sorry I couldn't go. My son was in for one day.
Mr. McGehee.
Just one thing. I just want to first recognize and thank Jonah, the owner of Words Bookstore, who provided the opportunity this evening for the Maplewood Mentors to come and attend the book reading of Rebound by best-selling and Newbery Medal award-winning author Kwame Alexander. Not only did he provide the opportunity for the youth to come and be part of this wonderful event, he also provided them with free autograph books. So kudos to Words and Jonah for that type of dedication to our town. Thank you. That's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Lembrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 4 brief items. The first is that the Recreation Advisory Committee is moving forward with pursuing the different opportunities that we discussed at the last meeting to put a basketball court. Everyone on the Recreation Advisory Committee is on board with the idea that the committee would like for it to be as large as possible within the space we have, and whether that be youth regulation or high school regulation or college NBA regulation is still to be determined. But the hope is that using the funds that were allocated by the Open Space Trust Fund, that we can come up with some professional drawings and designs and be able to bring back options to the Township Committee for consideration before too long. On behalf of the Pool Advisory Committee, registration is still open for the pool this year. Early bird pricing ended yesterday. I don't have final numbers, but I have heard that the registration was robust this year. But please keep in mind that you can still join, and we would love to see you out at the pool this summer. My third item is I just like to acknowledge and wish good luck to Lloyd Natick. Lloyd has served for the last several years as Chief of Staff to our Assemblyman, John McKeon, and Lloyd was always a great and very responsive point of contact for us when we needed to get in touch with Assemblyman McKeon, and was a great source of information, and whenever I needed anything or got back to him with something that Maplewood or our school district wanted, he was always very responsive. And Lloyd is now taking up a great position with the Department of Environmental Protection, and where he'll continue some of the great sustainability and environmental work that he did assisting our Assemblyman. So good luck to Lloyd. And finally, I'd just like to wish safe travels to all of the parents and kids who are going away for spring break or whatever's left of it at this point next week. Travel safe and enjoy your trip, Mayor. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to highlight the incredible efforts of our Municipal Alliance team at the direction of our chair, incredible chair, Candace Davenport, and our awesome Robert Rowe, Mr. Rowe, who spoke earlier as part of the Board of Health meeting. It's never been a better time to be a youth in Maplewood. In terms of after-school programming, there's tons of options, and the Municipal Alliance has been great in partnering with various community partners and in making those connections and making those offerings available. YouthNet, for instance, has 17 different after-school programs at this point, and they're growing, and they're, you know, of all kinds of activities and interests. There's mentoring opportunities through the Maplewood Police Department against drugs by way of LEAD, formerly known as DARE. Through the Parenting Center, there are different mentoring programs, elementary schools, elementary kids called Elementors, and by way of Max Scholars and Middle Max Scholars for middle school youth and Columbia High School youth. The Alliance is really doing what it means to build community through its public awareness and community outreach programming, and constantly highlighting all the various resources that we have available to talk about anti-drug and alcohol messaging and to deal with addiction. Really encourage everyone to go to our website, our township website. Under the Municipal Alliance, you can find information about all kinds of programming, support groups, and everything that I've just mentioned. Also, the open gym night at Columbia High School is becoming more and more popular. The last one, I think, had about 78 kids. It's a terrific opportunity for fellowship and just good old-fashioned fun. It's always on a Friday night from 5 to 9. The next one is going to be Friday, April 20th. After that, Friday, May 18th. And then Friday, June 15th. Great fun. I've been a couple times myself, and I really enjoyed myself, even though I can't play basketball at all. And I want to highlight the Soma Talks series, Getting Rid of the Stigma. This is a 3-part forum that will be focusing on how to spot substance abuse by members of your family and what to do if and when abuse is discovered. We do have an addiction issue, an opiate addiction issue, and other addictions in our community. It's a real thing. We encourage people to come out on February 20, sorry, that's gone, on February, on April 18th and April 25th, starting at 7:30 p.m. at the Woodland, where you can get educated on current trends in addiction, signs, and how to deal with it in terms of treatment and recovery. It's a serious issue, and I really encourage folks to go out and become connected and educated. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have 4 items. First, my office hours are Tuesday night, April 10th, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. here at Town Hall. Second, I just want to report out the Springfield Avenue Partnership. We had a great community summit on the 22nd of March. A lot of ideas that were kicked around, and we'll be starting a new marketing program, Springfield Avenue, Maplewood.
It's been a long meeting.
SAM to short. Also, the Public Art Project. We have now gotten artists' agreement for both the building on the corner of Springfield and Prospect and 1978 Public Art, which is our building. So we will be signing an agreement with the partnership to have a mural painted on the outside of 1978 Springfield Avenue. This was approved by the steering committee of the 1978 Art Center. They worked with the artist in selecting that art. So we are actually looking for a third building to put the third artist up that we found. So if we can put all three up, we're going to be doing that.
That'd be great.
Just want to report out, Mr. Lembrick and I have been working with the July 4th committee. We have raised concerns with them about the pricing of tickets. This year, there'll be an $8 ticket. It's an early bird ticket. Last year it was $12. Now it'll be $8. That will be sold beginning on Memorial Day. And that, if you want the general admission plus circus, it's $13. But if you just want to go to the events of that day, it'll be $8 each. So we did get them to bring it down. The Sunday, July 8th, will be the rain date that we talked about. And the last thing I want to talk about is the affordable assisted living project. The good news is it's going to the planning board next Tuesday. Right. So we're going to have that move ahead, and also our attorneys, I think today, have come to terms. We are selling them a portion of the DPW lot, and we had to make sure that we were protected, so they're buying it as is, and we put in a lot of language in there about they're responsible for cleaning it up. We also wanted to make sure that if in fact either their financing or something about the site made it so that they were not able to build the projected 182 units, with 91 of them being Medicaid eligible, if that had to go down, it would still be 50% Medicaid eligible. Okay. So if for some reason they went to 150, it would be 75 Medicaid eligible. So it would always be 50% Medicaid eligible. And lastly, as we've talked about before, they're looking for relief from the LEED certification, but we've put a number of sustainability objectives dealing with land protection, high priority sites, density, transit, bicycle, and they're going to be putting the capability of the rooftop of that building to put solar collectors so that we can run the electricity over to our DPW building. So all in all, we're moving ahead, and after this, we will, what Mr. Desiderio says, in the past, the planning board has approved the site, and then we passed the redevelopment agreement.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the resolution, and in the past resolutions, we actually put the dates of the hearings of the planning board and the date of the final decision of the planning board in the actual resolution.
So if, in fact, the planning board can do this in one night, we never know, we might see this on the next agenda, the redevelopment agreement.
Yeah.
Or in May.
And if the weather warms up.
Yeah, okay. And that's all I have. Is there anything else? Get a motion to adjourn? A second? All in favor? Aye. Aye, thank you very much.
Not a start.